Hey folks, the Comics Kid 2099 here. Just like on every Saturday, I'm here to talk to you about an episode of a superhero animated series. And today, I'll be talking about the Batman the Animated Series episode, Paging the Crime Doctor. But before I get into the review itself, I'll quickly be summing up the episode, and I'll be using lots of spoilers, so beware. We open with a group of thugs stealing a surgical laser, and Batman sorta gets hit with it. Turns out the thugs work for Rupert Thorne, who has his men steal medical supplies for his brother Matthew, a mob doctor. Matthew lost his medical license some time back thanks to his brother, and now his brother is having heart troubles. Matthew can't operate alone, so he arranges for Rupert's men to kidnap Leslie Tompkins, who, unbeknownst to our bad guys, is good friends with Batman. While Bruce is recovering from getting hit by the laser, he discovers Leslie is missing and who is responsible. Right around this time, after the surgery, Matthew finds out that his brother was going to have Leslie killed because she knows too much about his criminal operations. He decides Leslie's life is not worth getting his license back, thanks to Rupert's connections. Matthew helps save Leslie's life and is put away. The episode ends with Bruce coming to Matthew in jail, asking him to tell him about Thomas Wayne, who Matthew knew in medical school. Now, I'll just get to the end of the episode first since it's fresh on my mind. I thought it was super weird that the episode ended this way, since Bruce had never even heard of Matthew Thorne before this episode. I can totally buy that Leslie and Thomas had other friends when they were in med school, but why is it so important that Bruce hears stories about his father from some dude he doesn't even know? Couldn't Alfred or Leslie tell him stories? And wouldn't those stories mean more to him, since they're coming from people who are basically family and not a convicted felon? I guess the episode was struggling to find an ending, and so it went with this, but I still found it weird. As for the premise of the episode, it's basically the exact opposite of an earlier episode, It's Never Too Late. That episode also features two brothers, one a mobster, the other more of a productive member of society. And that episode ended with the mobster, Arnold Stromwell, turning his life around when he realizes his criminal activities are hurting those closest to him. This episode doesn't have the mobster repent, though, for a few reasons. One, as I said, It's Never Too Late already did that. And two, Rupert Thorne is much more of an important bad guy than Arnold Stromwell, who we only ever saw again in a flashback after his debut appearance. I'm not saying Thorne is a great character or anything, but if you chose to have him repent just like Stromwell did, then you're losing a recurring villain you could use in future episodes, whereas that wasn't really a concern with Stromwell. This episode also distances itself more from It's Never Too Late by focusing on the less bad brother Matthew instead of Rupert himself. That's the other big reason we don't have Rupert see the error of his ways, since he's hardly in the episode after he finds out that he needs surgery. As for Matthew, I can dig him as the sort of protagonist of the episode. He never wanted to be a part of the mob, but when he chose to help his brother in a bad situation, it backfired on him and he lost his license. Even now, when we first see him, he clearly shows contempt for Rupert and his lifestyle, but he chooses to make the wrong choice yet again when the prospect of getting his license back is dangled in front of him. This doesn't make him unlikable though, as you can tell that he's thinking he can finally get away from being a mob doctor if this works. Sure, this is naive of him, since he would only be further indebted to his brother if Rupert did keep his word and get him his license back. But you can't fault him for hoping that his life will finally turn around for the better if this works. And even if you don't sympathize with him when he orchestrates the kidnapping of Leslie, you can definitely sympathize with him when he gives up the life he wanted to help Leslie escape. One might say that Batman doesn't play a big enough part in the episode, but I would disagree. There have been plenty of times where Batman takes a backseat in the events of an episode so that we can focus on someone else. And if Matthew Thorne was less compelling or less likable, then I might feel like we should have seen more Batman here. But I think the amount of Batman that we got was fine, and we did get a nice human moment from Bruce Wayne at the end. It's a moment that isn't born out of his almost obsession to save the city, but just a normal human desire to get to know his father a little bit. Even if this moment doesn't make much sense, I think it would make up for there not being a whole heck of a lot of Batman in this episode if I felt like he was lacking in this episode, which I don't. Overall, this is a pretty good episode. The conflict isn't overly complicated, but it is compelling nonetheless. I came to care about Matthew and his problem in a short amount of time, which, as I've said before, is no mean feat. I did find myself thinking of It's Never Too Late a lot while watching this episode, but as I said, it really doesn't have all that much in common with that episode. I hope you liked this episode and this review. If you did, next weekend I'll be talking about an episode of Batman Beyond, and the week after that I'll be talking about another episode of Batman the Animated Series. And of course I do other kinds of videos throughout the week, so be sure to check those out as well. And if you did like this review, then be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.